Hello and a very warm welcome to Mohandas Pai and Nisha Holi to Womenistan Talk Show. Thank you, sir, so much for coming. It's my complete privilege,
Thank you.
my honor to have you all both on the talk show. And this is not my forte, the kind of intellectual knowledge that you all have. I'm not even an iota close to what you all have in knowledge-wise. But I said, let me take the leap and at least connect with you all and get you all onto this platform so my viewers get a chance to understand the depth of technology, the depth of biotech, and so much of research that even Nisha has done. She's a completely empowered lady, and Mohandas sir, thank you so much for connecting me with her. Complete privilege.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I would like to introduce Mohandas Paiji to all my viewers. Mohandas Paiji is chairman of RN Capital, chairman of 314 Capital, chairman of Manipal Global Education, a member of the board of Havells India, former chairman of FICCI Skills and Higher Education Committees, past president of AIMA, chairman of multiple SEBI committees, founder trustee of the Akshaya Patra Foundation, former investment committee member of the SDBI, India Aspiration Fund, and the India Funds of Funds, and a former member of the board of the National Stock Exchange of India. Mohandas ji served as a member of the board and CFO at Infosys, one of India's largest software services companies. Over a 17-year period, he was voted CFO of the year multiple times, spearheaded the first listing of an India-registered company on NASDAQ, and headed several additional departments. Mohandas ji has also helped launch 14 plus different investment vehicles across private equity and venture capital, which have cumulatively invested in over 250 companies with a capital base of 400 plus million. In 2000, he co-founded the Akshaya Patra Foundation, Bangalore, a midday meal program for school children. Today, this program feeds 18 lakh plus children each day in 13,500 plus government schools across India. Mohandas ji was awarded the Padma Shri Award by the President of India in 2015 and the Karnataka Rajyotsav Award in 2004. He holds a bachelor's degree in commerce as a university rank holder, a bachelor's degree in law, LLB, from Bangalore University, and is a fellow member of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India as an All India rank holder. Wow, can it get better than that? Amazing. And I would like to introduce Nisha Hole to all she's a very empowered woman to all my viewers. Nisha is a writer, a researcher, a beautiful looking lady, and an engineer. She is in the technology fellow at the Center for Cellular and Molecular Platforms, Bangalore. Nisha was previously co-founder of BioMonitor Research, designing technology for the prevention of the spread of infectious diseases. Prior to that, she was based in San Francisco Bay Area, working at the cutting edge of hardware product and process development at Applied Materials and Bloom Energy. Nisha writes about ideas and shifts at the intersection of technology, economics, and policy. She has co-authored numerous articles and several reports on human capital development in India, comparative studies of India's state's economic and demographic growth, multiple facets of India's technology readiness, and India's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. As consulting editor at Your Story, she produced India's first report serving the country's deep science innovation ecosystem. Wow, how does it get better than that? What an empowered lady. Complete honor, complete privilege, sir, to have you and Nisha. Thank you, Nisha, again. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mehnaaz.
So I have a few questions which my friends and peers and women would like to know about the situations that are right now, the facilities, the subsidies, the incentives that I thought maybe we could discuss about women, and especially now that the COVID situation is on. And so if I could ask you a few questions on those lines. regarding the government subsidies that we have in India and the incentives and the government quotas, what are the exact quotas, subsidies, and incentives which are easily accessible to women, and how do they avail of the benefits, sir?
Mehnaaz, first let me talk to you about the status of women in the country, and then we'll go on to subsidies. All right? In the last decade, last 10 years, there's been a remarkable transformation in the role of women in this country. Politically, in the panchayats, women make up 50% of the panchayat members, we know that. And that has helped them get political power over the last 30 years. Many of the women, when they became the panchayat head, had their husbands rule them. But now I think we see many more young women come and they are on their own, but they got the confidence. And even in the legislature, more women are coming up. In the city councils, women are coming up. Yes, political representation is quite low. There is a battle for 33% reservation for women. And I think that is something that India has to address. In the corporate world, 17% of all board positions are filled by women. Most companies have at least one woman on the board. I think it should go up to maybe 25, 30, 35% for a period of time. And I think that will be very good. And in the corporate world, in top management, we have got many women founders, CEOs, etc. Not enough, but much better today than what it was 10 years ago. And if you look at the top tier corporate officers, maybe 20, 25% have become women right now. In the banking industry, women dominate the lower levels. Many of them, because of family obligations, leave halfway. And family is extremely important for all of us. And I hope they stay back. We have seen State Bank of India have the first woman chairperson. You know, Arundhati Bhattacharya was a wonderful person. And she was a very, very talented person. She is now retired. And even in the tech industry, 40% of the incoming batch in engineering is women. The girls are doing extremely well. They're going overseas, they're working, they're competing with men. And the top tier, maybe 10 to 12% are women because they started quite late. If you complain and say that women are not represented at the top of the pyramid, it's just because they started very late. If you started 40 years ago, you'll have adequate numbers, but you started 20 years ago. And the reasons were very clear, that the post-liberalization generation was the generation that really broke through, because opportunities expanded massively post-liberalization in 91. In 91, our GDP was 275 billion. Last year, March 2020, it came to 2.93 trillion. So when economy expands like this, opportunity, everybody expands. And in higher education, there are the GR, gross enrollment rate for women is more. Nisha will give all the data. And even in school, there are more girls than boys, etc. Now, if you look at what incentives are available for women, we've got to categorize them into three kinds of incentives. The first is very clearly women at the bottom of the pyramid. Now, the Narendra Modi government has made sure that about 400 million bank accounts are open. 200 million women got money into the account. About 85 million women got free gases for the post-COVID, and they're getting gas at subsidized rates. And we are seeing that greater opportunities opening up for women in work. Even in the Marega scheme, where government is spending 1 lakh crores, a large number of women are in the workforce, primarily because the men have gone away, the men have emigrated. And if you look at school and college education, of course, they'll come up. Even in schools and college education, most states have got free scholarship for girls, young girls, so that more and more go to school. And this is all across all communities. You'll be very shocked to see how women are done across all communities: scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, Muslims, anybody. I think Nisha will give you this thing. Yeah. We have been talking to government about creating a special fund for women to become startup entrepreneurs. I think women make up about 8 to 10% of the startup founders in India, and I think it's important to understand that they just started late. Is there discrimination against women in technology? Yes, there's a little bit of discrimination when it comes to funding. They find it difficult to get funding. That's because the quantum of funding is not very, very large. The pool has to expand. So government has got schemes, special schemes for women, for education, for their health, and for maternity. 85 to 90% of all deliveries is now in hospitals. That's a very good thing. Women are living longer than men. Women live longer. So if you ill-treat a woman, she'll have the last laugh.
But they also get heart attacks, sir. The women nowadays, we never heard in earlier days that women were getting heart attacks.
Well, I think they're working too hard a little bit, trying to juggle the family and careers. But that's But I think in all indications, women are doing much better. Are women right there? Well, they're getting there. They will get there in the next 10 years. This decade is a decade of the Indian women. Nisha will explain about that. So there are many more schemes in the government and other places. Easy to get them. Easy to get them means you must know how to fill the form. You must do what it is. There are targeted women and child welfare departments in all the states. They try to do the work. But to me, the biggest takeaway is when a woman gets educated, the generation that follows do very well. And the data is very clear from the sample research and survey. Nisha?
Sure. So, Mehnaaz, I think, MDP mentioned the economic liberalization event in India, right, in 1991. And that had a wonderful cascade effect on the economy, on many factors, but on women, it's had the most impact yet, because there's a very simple inverse correlation between our fertility rate and our literacy rates. The more women are literate and educated, the lower our fertility drops, and that has cascade effects on the population growth, and the woman is just able to do so much more when the fertility drops, right? Just to give you some data, in 1991, India's fertility rate was 3.4. That means on average, a woman will have 3.4 children in her lifetime, right? By the time 2015, 2016 came around, it had already dropped down to 2. And now we might even be lesser than 2. We'll see, in the next census what the data is. At the same time, women's literacy has really risen from 43% in 1991. It was only 43% in 1991, all the way up to about 70% now. And so there's a very clear inverse correlation. And we're also seeing data coming out of the sample registration survey that says the more a woman is educated, the lesser the children she will have. So, for example, illiterate women tend to have about 3 children in their lifetime on average, whereas a woman who has primary education, it comes out to about 2.5. By the time they reach class 12, it's come down to 1.8, and graduated above, it's come down to 1.7. And so there's a very clear correlation. The more a woman is educated, her fertility rate comes down, and so she's able to do so much more. And so we're seeing the effect of this economic liberalization and literacy rates going up in our higher education system, in the school system. In school, there are more girls enrolled today than boys. The gross enrollment ratio is higher. And in higher education last year, seminal moment for India, the gross enrollment ratio of women exceeded that of men, 26.4 versus 26.3. So our gender parity is now 1 in higher education. And that's going to have so many wonderful effects, because we're seeing this across India, even in states like Bihar, where the higher education gross enrollment ratio is only 12%, which means only 12% of the young population in Bihar is a huge young population, is in college. But even in that, women are enrolling at a higher rate than men. Even in the Muslim community, which has a very low gross enrollment ratio, women are enrolling at 8.7% year on year, as opposed to men at 6.9%. So we're seeing this across communities, we're seeing this across the country, and this is going to have a wonderful waterfall effect, because this decade, we are urging all governments, central government, the state governments, administration, to figure out how to utilize this large human capital coming out of the college system into the workforce. See, the biggest problem is, and MDP alluded to this, right? Now, take Uttar Pradesh, for example. Uttar Pradesh graduates about 16 lakh graduates every year. Can you believe it? 16 lakh every year. And more than half of that are women. But what happens is, because there aren't enough employment opportunities in the state, men will emigrate out. They'll come down to the south, they'll come down to Bangalore or Bombay and find employment. But women do not migrate as easily. And so they tend to stay back, and they're unemployed. And that is especially sad, because they've got a college degree. So if all states can figure out how to provide employment to these women and men in the states, then immediately our economy is going to double, because our workforce will double and our skilled workforce will double. So this, I think, is the next challenge for India. We have all this human capital coming in through the educational pipeline. How do we harness this to grow our economy, grow our workforce, and just grow our society as a whole?
So coming to the question, sir, is what are the different schemes pan-India which are available probably in textiles or IT or somewhere where women, my viewers have absolutely right now no clue as to, if someone wants to get into textiles, or someone wants to get into being an entrepreneur. So what is the first step to approach which website, which government department? How does one go ahead with applying for government subsidies and incentives?
Mehnaaz, what I would suggest is, if you are just trying to set up a business, work somewhere and get some experience, because you need to understand the business before you try to set up on your own. Because if you do not do that, you'll not know how to handle it. So I would urge everybody, work for 1 or 2 years, whether you are in textiles, you are in technology, you are in a retail business, or wherever it is. Just work somewhere, get to know how the business is, because the biggest challenge for business is not making a good or commodity, it's marketing and selling. You need to go to consumers, you need to sell, and for that you require capital. And once you get that experience, there are schemes available in the government, in every government, for women entrepreneurs. They're available on the women and child welfare websites.
Yeah.
They're available on the SIDBI website. They're available on many banks' websites. They're available possibly in the Ministry of Finance website, where there are special schemes for women entrepreneurs. But if you want to get that, you have to apply, you have to go meet people. And if you are new to the job, you walk into a bank branch and say, hey, give me a loan. They're not going to give you a loan. So what you need to do is to look to the future, identify what you want to do, and then look around to see whether you can build up a relationship with a financial institution. Go to your bank, talk to them, and tell them what they're doing. Ask them for the scheme. They'll give you the information. Make sure you have a proper record of transactions. Then apply to them for a loan. And there are enough schemes for you to get a loan. It's all available on public sources, on the web pages of all these departments that are there. And I do believe that more and more women are getting loans. Now, loans to women also come under the priority sector, because 40% of bank lending should go to the priority sector, and women entrepreneurs come within that category too, from what we know. So I think that's an extremely important thing to do. And once you start a small business, look to, if you are in technology where we have more familiarity, you can go to places like Let's Venture, which is the portal where you can go raise capital. You can do the round of venture capitalists, etc. But my suggestion to women is, don't try to be a sole proprietor if you want to get into a bigger business. Form a group of 2 or 3 people. It's okay to have men too. I'm not suggesting you have only men, but get 2 or 3 women, come together. Because remember, from our experience, a successful business will always have 2 or 3 entrepreneurs. One will be the visionary. Second will be what we call the hacker in technology, a person who knows technology. And the other one will be the hustler, a person who knows marketing. You need to have marketing skills. You need to have technology skills. You need to have the skills to have the vision about the business. And then if you want further capital, try to raise it from your friends and family. Friends and family is a big source of capital. Now, let me tell you what are the source of capital if everybody wants to be an entrepreneurship. The first is family. Family can give small amounts of money to try it out. And many, many young boys and girls get it. Second is friends and family. The immediate people who can bankroll you, give you a little bit of money, and this is available in this country. Many people start off like that. The next is the banking system. The banks are special loan schemes for women. You can go there. Then there are the state financial corporation development institutions like the State Financial Corporation. Karnataka has it. Many states have it. Even Maharashtra has that. You can go there, and they have schemes for women. And then you can look to Government of India, which has got schemes by refinancing for women on the website, the Women and Child Development. And then you can go to venture capitalists for capital. So there are multiple sources available to men and women. And women are special schemes on the government side because government has got a large development program. But I would say that before you jump in to start a business, get trained, get some experience, and then start off on your own.
Yes, that's what I meant to ask. Is it's not the women at the base level, it's the women who are already in the business and who would like to scale up. So once they scale up, is it necessary to do your MBA so that you can pitch to the bank with a proper project report, or is it's also okay to just visit the websites and download the form and apply?
Mehnaaz, when you go to a bank and you're new, the bank will not give you money. They're very scared. Whether you are a male or a female, they treat you badly equally. All right, maybe woman a little bit more harshly. But once you transact with them, show some business, then they start giving you small amounts of money. And then you improve the business and go to them for a bigger money, but you must have your financial statements. The key is financial discipline. Look at the story of Kiran Mazumdar Shah. How did she start? She started off small. She put some little family money. Then she grew the business. She went to a bank. The bank gave her an overdraft. The bank gave her some term loan to buy, some equipment. And slowly she built up a business. Today she's worth $4 billion, right? $4 billion in about 40 years, right? It takes time. It takes time for everybody to succeed in business, because time is required for you to have confidence. What I find, I mean, you must pardon me, and I don't want to look like a misogynist, whatever it is that women are very cautious about money. While men are slightly more adventurous, women are very cautious. They will not spend money easily. I used to work with Vasundhara Raje, who was the chief minister of Rajasthan, 2 times when you were chief minister. And the first time she came to a state when the state was almost broke with no money, she cleaned it up. And in the end, before the election, I told us, why didn't you give away all the money? Have some schemes. No, I have to leave it to the next. I have to leave it. I'm going to come back. She didn't come back and left the successor government about 5,000 crores in the bank. Again, same thing happened. She came back after 5 years. Again, the state was in bad condition. She did very well. Again, I told her, go have the schemes. The most important thing for a political leader is to come back to power, not look out of the finances of your state. But she said, no. I'm like a housewife. I have to make sure my state is all right. She made the state all right, financially strong. She lost the election. The next government blew it up. So women are very cautious by nature. Look at Kiran. Even though she's worth $4 billion, she's very cautious. She doesn't overspend. She invests very wisely. So I think there is a trait in women, but that's why you must get the confidence that you can succeed. And for that, if you're able to, be very frugal in your business, get more internal accruals, that is the way to succeed.
And
Nisha, you have been an entrepreneur. Why don't you tell us?
No, I completely agree. Having that experience at another company before starting something up is very important, because it's about learning the technical skills, it's about learning the engineering skills, but also the management skills, the financial skills. And Mehnaaz, you asked about an MBA. There are many places where an MBA is useful, but it only takes you so far. After that point, you just have to get into the details. You have to understand the nitty-gritties of what your business is. You have to understand what market gap you are addressing with your technology or your product or service, and you have to be able to market that. All of this has to come together. Certainly an MBA can teach you some of that, but a lot of it just comes out after experience. So an MBA is not wholly necessary to be able to do any of this, but you have to be able to live and breathe your business to succeed at it. You have to be able to go to the bank and convince them that you know what you're talking about, that you will be able to make profits and you'll be able to return that loan. Even your investors, right? You go to a venture capitalist or a private equity funder, they want to know that they can get their money back in 4 years, 5 years, however long. And so the entrepreneur has to have the confidence to convince them that they will get the returns on their business, on their investment. And that is most important. That is what most investors and banking people look at when they're giving out loans of this sort.
so,
Mehnaaz, I want to answer this separately. Mehnaaz, what are the essential traits of an entrepreneur, whether male or female? Okay. The first trait is you must have enormous self-belief and confidence in yourself. You must have confidence you're going to succeed, because body language is very important. You can't be nervous. You can't show lack of confidence. Second, you must have great passion and energy to work. And when you are in business, it's 24/7. It's a whole life. So you must have that energy to last it out, make sure your work-life balance is there, and take care of your other duties, whatever they are. So enormous energy, passion to continue. And the third thing which you must have is perseverance, because it takes a long time to succeed for everybody. Whether you are a male or a female, entrepreneurship is a very hard journey. You need to have that perseverance. And the fourth is you must have the emotional quotient to create a team. You must learn how to work with people. And you will never get good people unless you give them the space. Yeah, teamwork is extremely important, because you want to build an organization which will take care of everybody. Look at Falguni Nair. I think you know about her. Falguni was in Kotak Mahindra Bank, right? And see, she's built a very nice business, Nika, and she's doing extremely well. She's built a very good team. So you need to have a team person. And then you got to be frugal in your business. You got to pay people well, but you got to be frugal to make sure that you don't waste money unnecessarily. And then you got to be a person who can go and market. You can go and sell. You understand consumer behavior. You understand business behavior. So all the traits that are there for a male should be there for a female. There is nothing else that you have. There's no difference between a male and female when you come to entrepreneurship, except that you have confidence. Now, how will the world look towards a female entrepreneur as against a male entrepreneur? And To be honest, the world will look at a male entrepreneur much more likely, easily than a female entrepreneur. Because when they look at a female entrepreneur, they will ask questions. Oh, will you be able to continue? What happens if you get married? Sadly, these are questions people have asked women entrepreneurs who come to us for capital. We started the first woman venture capital fund in India called Saha in Bangalore about 5 years ago. Saha was the first venture capital fund for women. We have funded 9 enterprises where women are the CEOs, women are the founders, etc. And many of them come and told us, we have gone to many places. They always ask the question because everybody is suspicious. Are you going to be there for a long period of time? So that's why perseverance and the energy and the passion important, and the same quality for a male or a female. But a female has a higher bar to cross. Let's be very clear. I want to be honest with you. The world is not exactly kind to women entrepreneurs. They put off tougher condition. They look at you with slightly jaundiced eyes. You got to break it. And once you break it, you are on a way up. And then the same for everybody.
Look at Kamala Harris. What would you like to say about from Mami, from Chennai to Kamala Harris, the vice president? In Chennai, it's called Mami, right?
Yeah.
Mami. So from Mami to vice president of America.
Yeah. See, Kamala Harris' life is a life which was enhanced by her mother. Her mother was a pioneer. She went there alone. She studied, got married to a person there, and she had a child. She, gave the children, both the girls, a great space and gave them the confidence. And Kamala was alone. She fought all the way. And in a very misogynistic, male-dominated society, she came up and she was very good. And she kept going up. And, I think she succeeded by her own character.
And perseverance, like you said, and the will never to die, and pure dedication and hard work. Coming to one question, very important is, what are the real skill sets that a woman needs to scale up from being an entrepreneur to getting onto the corporate ladder, as in being a director in companies like, I had my training under Institute of Directors, but a friend of mine in UK Parliament, Sandeep Verma, she's the Baroness of the UK House of Lords. She's a good friend of mine. So I've been catching up with her, and the last interview was also with her. She said that there is a struggle amongst women to get onto corporate boards. So what is the skill set that is really needed? Why that 1%, sir?
Mehnaaz, corporate boards are an old boys network. There's an old boys network in every country. That I know somebody, that somebody knows somebody. So we'll call that person and something. So, you got to be part of the network. Okay, I'm telling you honestly how it happens. You look at any board, they're all people who maybe, the founder knows, or the promoter knows, or everybody knows, because they want to make sure they get people on the board who will agree with them and will not fight with them. Okay, that's the sad truth. The second thing, which is very important, is you must be known in public. You must be known in public. Rama Bijapurkar is a consultant for McKinsey. She joined the Infosys board. She was known in public. She used to write very often, and she had particular views. And, because she used to lecture and to write, she had a brand equity. She built the brand equity, and she was very visible. So people, when they want to have a woman director, they look around and say, hey, there's a very good, highly qualified person. Let us go there, right? And you got Irina Vittal, right? Irina Vittal in Mumbai. She's on 7 to 8 boards. Why is that? Because she's in McKinsey. She's a consultant. She's moved on. She knows everybody. And when you do consulting with big enterprises, and then you say, I'm leaving consulting, they will say, why don't you come and join the board? Hema Ravichandar was head of HR for Infosys. She's on a few boards too. How is that? Because, people know in public. So you got to be known in public. And that's extremely important. Okay. And the third thing is you must have some functional expertise, either in finance or in marketing or somewhere else. And that will come through your work, because people will ask you, do you have any expertise to sit on the audit committee, for instance? Do you have any expertise to sit on the strategy committee? So how can you contribute? So you should have some strong area, some specialization where you can contribute. I think these are the 3 things that are important. But the biggest thing is you got to be part of networks. That's the sad truth, Mehnaaz. I don't want to say goody things to you. Nisha?
No, I completely agree. It's, you build up your experience. You have to, at some point, grind it out. There is a slog. You have to be able to build deep expertise in the area that you are specializing in. And beyond that, you have to build your network, because the You want to be an entrepreneur, you want to get on a board, whatever you want to venture out on, you have to be able to depend on other people, and those people come from your networks. Very often you see the most successful companies and startups these days are people who have come together from their networks, right? They knew each other through a previous work engagement, or through a consultancy, and that's how they came together. They recognized similar entrepreneurial spirits in each other. They had time to build up the relationship, and then they got together and started a company. So that networking is very important, wherever you want to get to in life. That's for
Basically,
sure.
it's a trust factor which has to be built up, because these are very sensitive matters which are discussed in board meetings. So there has to be a comfort level and a trust factor that whatever is being discussed should not go out of the room. That is also one major criteria. How does one, Nisha, safeguard yourself when you're an independent director, and if some company approaches you? So what should you really see as a woman if someone approaches you? Because I was approached by one or two companies, and I was a little hesitant being an independent director. Should I say yes? Should I say no? And if I were to say no, what's the right way to say no? What are the factors that an independent director should look into?
I think that question is better aimed at MDP, because he has been an independent director on many boards.
Indeed.
Well, Mehnaaz, if you are an independent director, the most important thing you have to understand is whether it's a good enough company with good corporate governance standards where you can go. Because today the law expects a lot of independent directors. The law tries to put more and more responsibility on independent directors to ensure that all stakeholders are protected. And then it implies that you have a deep knowledge of the corporation, you have a deep knowledge of the business, you have a deep knowledge of law, and you know what is happening, and you are accountable and responsible. And in a few court cases, the courts have gone so far as to say their bank account should be attached because the independent directors and the companies fail.
Exactly.
So you got to be very careful, because the law says very clearly that the independent director will exercise due care. He is not responsible for the consequences of the business, because you are not running the business, you are in governance. And what is the role of a director? A board of a company has three roles: supervision and guidance of the enterprise. That means you supervise, then you guide the enterprise. You control and monitor through the nomination committee and the audit committee to make sure that things are on board. And the third important thing is you give input for strategy, right? So you ought to give input for strategy. And independent directors become more important when things go wrong. When do things go wrong? It could go wrong because there's a business failure where you have to come in and change the CEO or set in management. Second, when there's a regulatory action, when you have to step in and make sure things happen. And the third, when there's a systemic issue going on in the economy. For example, because of COVID, everything shut down. So independent directors have to come together, ask management, how are you going to survive? They have to enhance supervision. That is the role. They're not running businesses. They're not managers. They don't have the full details. And you come for some 5 to 6 meetings, you spend maybe 1 or 2 days, they give you a lot of information. If you're an independent director on the bank's board in India, they give you a lot of sanctions for all the loans. Full day, they give you all documents. How can you read it? How can you sign a sanction? How can you approve it? It's very difficult for anybody to do that. So the law puts too much on you. And if you want to be an independent director in a board, somebody approaches you, look at the company's history, look at what do the public say about the corporate governance, look at whether they're complying with the stock exchange market regulations, etc., and see whether the promoters or founders belong to good enterprises, because there are many family enterprises where they just want a woman. They just want a woman. Why? Because the law says have a woman. They want to have a woman. They really don't care. Just see the background, and then you make the choice. And when you are there on the board, just be careful. Don't agree to sign everything blindly. To make sure that you take due care, you ask relevant questions. And if you're uncomfortable, just get off the board. Just get off the board. Don't stick around. Don't stick around.
So there was
very important.
During my training time, we were told that in case during the board meeting, if there is a certain point or a certain clause that you are not very comfortable or you're not very convinced on, please sure that you raise an objection in the meeting and have it drafted that I object to this point, which the other board members have agreed to. Is that the way to do it? That I'm not giving a show of hands on it? Should we make note of
Well,
it?
you can,
So
you
that
know, Mehnaaz, you
tomorrow,
can
if
be a
something happens, tomorrow, if there's a domino effect, it's recorded in the board meeting that I was not a part of this decision.
Well, in most board meetings, all decisions are passed by consensus. Very rarely there's dissent recorded. Very, very rarely, because most times they change the decision to make sure there's no dissent. And I think if you feel that something is wrong, I'm sure all of the independent directors will feel something is wrong. I'm sure that everybody will feel something is wrong. And if you feel something is wrong and is very grave, the best thing is to resign.
Okay.
The best thing is not to stick around and not to say, I object to this. Because if you object to it and they pass a decision, what happens the next meeting? It vitiates the atmosphere, right?
Correct.
It's better not to be a part of it where they don't care for your opinion. That's my personal view, because you must be on boards where they care for your opinion.
Correct. Well said, sir. Very well said. This was a very sensitive question that, we were having in our training time. And coming to the scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and the Dalits for women, especially, what are the schemes and incentives and what are the facilities, according to you? Do corporates really take them in for employment basis? Are there quota systems or reservations?
Well, I'll ask Nisha to speak about how they're doing in education and how they come up, and then we'll speak about the quota system, private sector, and everybody else. Nisha?
Sounds good. So, Mehnaaz, as I was saying before, in higher education, women are doing well all around, right? Now we're seeing this across states, but we're also very interestingly seeing this across all social groups, all social groups. So, you mentioned the scheduled caste communities. Women are enrolling at 8% year on year in higher education, SC women, as opposed to 5% for SC men. Even against scheduled tribes, right? 9.5% enrollment year on year, as opposed to 6.2% for men. OBCs also, we're seeing the same thing. Minorities, we're seeing the same thing. Muslims, we're seeing the same thing. So we're seeing this very interesting thing where, first of all, reservation has worked in India, at least in the higher education system, because general merit enrollment is coming down, and all these groups, all these social communities, everywhere the enrollment rates are up. And interestingly, so if you look at the population composition of India with all of these, scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, OBCs, etc., in higher education, the percentage of your enrollment in the total is coming very close to the population. So, for example, in SCs are about 14% of the population, 16% of the population, and they consist of 14% in higher education. Similarly, STs are about 8% of the population, and they consist of about 6% in higher education. OBCs are at maybe 41% of the population, and they consist of about 37% of the higher education composition. So we're seeing that reservation has worked, and especially for women, women are no longer these intersectional victims as everyone seemed to be, talking about in the media, because they're doing very well. They've taken the opportunities that have come to them, they've taken them in hand, and they're really using them to drive their communities forward. And so we're seeing this huge effect where, at any time it's going to normalize with the population. It's going to equalize. We're going to have all these women coming out of the higher education system ready to go to work. And so now we listen to MDP talk about what opportunities are available to them in the workforce so that they can go seamlessly from higher education into work.
Mehnaaz, in the government sector, government has 2.5 crore employees. Government possibly hires about 7 to 8 lakhs a year all across India, state government and central government. In the public sector, I think there are possibly maybe 75, 80 lakhs. Okay. And in the public sector and the government, women, people of the SC/ST community have a reservation of 15% and 7.5%. And in most places, reservation is filled. And so you have to compete with the men of your same community to get into the job. And there is no gender discrimination because you get it on merit, because you all have to pass a test. There'll be an exam, there'll be a test, you pass it. And women will do much better because, they're very smarter in passing tests, as Nisha has said about higher education too. And, if you look at the rank list of all colleges and everywhere, there are more women in the top ranks than men because they're much more diligent and much smarter, I guess. So I think that's there. Now, in the private sector, from what I know, people are blind to any caste, any community. I don't believe there's any discrimination against any community, any caste in the private sector. At least I have not heard so. Yes, there are murmurs that the discrimination, but that is, maybe 15, 20 years ago. Today, most enterprises want very good people, very smart people. And how do they hire people? They hire people by looking at the top 20% of your college. They go to a certain number of colleges, they get top 20% and they hire them. They don't ask you for a caste, they don't ask you for a community, and they don't care about gender in many places. Yes, some places they do care about gender because they said, oh, this is a night work, this work and all that. But most people are giving it up. So if you look at the situation today, employers are blind to your ethnicity, your background, your caste, your religion, etc., and they hire you based on merit. And that's the truth today. Now let's not go back to the past and make some vague allegations against people. So you have to aim to be in the top 20%. You have to aim to compete if you want to join the private sector. And I think you got to do that in a very significant way, and you will succeed. I think you will succeed. Look at the tech industry. The tech industry hires about 3 to 3.5 lakhs people every year all across India. And there, Nisha can sound me out. They don't care about gender. They don't care about your background. They never ask you about a caste. They don't ask you to fill a column saying what religion you are. They don't ask you. Maybe they know you by your name and whatever it is, but I don't believe there's any discrimination because of that. They want only good people who meet the norms. So I think things are much better now than what they are.
These are the companies who think on a macro level and they think out of the box. So these are very petty things for them to come under. But still in India, this racism and stuff like for SC and ST is somewhere there, I think more in the public sector, less in the private sector.
But Mehnaaz, my personal view is that there is a victimhood narrative being created by many people. Swaraja magazine had written an article where they said crimes against SC, ST is less than crime against the general population. But whenever the victim is belonging to the SC, ST community, there's a furor in the media. Because the media and everybody says they are a section which need to be protected. Just like women need to be protected, a crime against women is a very big thing. So there is a hue and cry. And there are many people in academia and other places who create a victimhood narrative. Because in sociology and all of the social sciences, caste discrimination is a very big thing. They teach you there's caste discrimination. There is. Now, is there no caste discrimination? There is discrimination. We have to agree there's discrimination. Is it as much as it was 40 years ago? No. If you look at Dr. Ambedkar's writing, he wrote in 1950s, 1940s and 50s, he asked all his followers to go away from the villages to the big towns because in the big towns, nobody cares about your background, where you are from, what you are. They only care whether you can work, right? Today, as India urbanizes, as India gets more and more educated, all these get by. For example, there is this big thing, some 50, 60 people have said there's caste discrimination in the United States in technology. Now, I've been reading some other blogs which say, the person who complains does not have a case because he's been treated fairly well. And it's just that he did not meet the bill for whatever the job is. So there's a lot of narrative. It is there. It is like discrimination against women. It is there. You can't deny it. Society is paternalistic. Are we as paternalistic today as we had 40 years ago? No. It's come down tremendously. Today under law, for most communities, except maybe Muslims, a boy and a girl get equal access to a father's property and to ancestral property. There's no discrimination. That's why in this country, Mehnaaz, we need a law, and I've been tweeting about it, where all Indian women, irrespective of any community, irrespective of any religion, get the same rights.
Where we don't have a proper law in place, we are the ones who are suffering.
Yes, you should get a law in place where all the constitutional guarantees are given to you. So your personal law should not come in the way of your getting your constitutional guarantees. And what are they? You should get a right to property, your parents' property. When they pass on, you must get it as much as the male had, as the boy. And you must get a property share in your ancestral property, which is passed on to your parents. And next, in marriage, you must have equal rights. In separation, you must have equal rights. Maintenance, you must have equal rights. And children custody, you must have equal rights. Because there must be equal rights again for all women in this country, irrespective of the background. I hope the law comes where women are treated fairly as men. If that comes, we'll see a sea change. And also we need what is called an equal opportunity law. An equal opportunity law where employees have to demonstrate they give an equal opportunity to everybody. I think it is coming. It is on the way. I spoke to Salman Khurshid many years ago as a minister, and he was telling me all these things are because we don't have an equal opportunity law. Now that will come when there's education for people. Today, the corporate sector is highly evolved. They're very, very savvy. They're very careful. And I think they don't have these discriminatory policies. And I think it's very important that even in other areas and in society, there's a greater level of education.
So in fact, a good point that you said that we Muslims should, come together and form some kind. It all starts with the strength of content and data and numbers and statistics. Like, where does the strength come from? When you want to pitch for an idea or you want to pitch for a reservation or a point of view, then you show your strengths of numbers. So I have a dear friend, in fact, she's the extended family. Her name is Dr. Farah Usmani. She heads UNFPA, United Nations Fund Population Association in New York. And her husband, Javed Usmani, sir, was serving in UP with three chief ministers, L.K. Advani, and I'm sure you must have heard about IAS officer Javed Usmani. His wife has come out with a portal. It's a compendium that we are building up. I'm heading the Maharashtra list, where we are getting lists from every state and all the inspiring Indian Muslim women. It's called inspiringindianmuslimwomen.org. So there's Shabana Azmi, there's Zinat Aman, there's Farah Khan, the director, many, and in Delhi, it's Najma Hepchullah. So we are building this compendium in each state. And then Farah Usmani and Javed Usmani are going to pitch it for ideas they want for the Muslim. Probably they have some, ways ahead for going ahead for the women in India. So that's a great thing that I'm working on with them right now. So transgenders and tribal women and men are very close to my heart. I was in Udaipur with Mrs. Sandeep Verma from the Baroness of UK. And we went and we met these tribal children. So what is the state of our tribal people in India? And how can we move them ahead and have them more progressive?
Mehnaaz, the only thing that transforms a human being is education, Mehnaaz. Education enables you to negotiate for yourself. Education enables you to understand what is available to you, how to get your rights. Because we all live in republics and democracies where all of us have equal rights. A scheduled tribe, scheduled caste, Muslim, Hindu, anybody, all of us have equal rights. We are equal citizens in this country. All of us have equal rights. There cannot be discrimination against us. That is a law. That is the constitution. And that can be ensured for everybody. But how do we know we cannot be discriminated? We have to be educated. And once you're educated, you are past all that. Correct? So the first greatest thing is all scheduled tribes children should have school education. Today we'll be very happy to know, that most of them are in school. The dropout rate is still higher for scheduled tribes compared to scheduled castes, but it is coming up and I think they're doing very well. In fact, the scheduled tribes reservation is being captured by more and more people from the Northeast. The Northeast is better educated. They're being go to Delhi. A lot of people are there from the Northeast in that criteria. I hope they restrict, they restrict that this thing to some category and allow for others who are from other areas like Bastar and East and Bihar and Jharkhand and others, so they also can get a leg up because there the educational standards are not very developed. Nisha will tell you that in Jharkhand, where it's got a large ST population, the enrollment rate for girls and boys is in double digits. So education is the key. First is education. Second is exposure. Now, how does exposure come? Digital India. Nisha, I think you talk about how Digital India can transform people. And the third, very importantly, Mehnaaz, what you said, we need heroes for every community. We need heroes. See, in your Muslim community, we need women like you. We need the heroes to come up and stand up so that, the girls, you look at some heroes, I too can be that. For example, Kiran Mazumdar Shah is a hero
why do we call
so many girls.
Why do we call the women heroes? Why can't we be called heroines? Why is it the bias of the women is the hero?
Mehnaaz, I'm using it in a very neutral gender.
I know.
I'm using it in a neutral gender as heroes. Male and female, both are heroes. I'm using it in a very neutral gender. So you need those aspirational figures who can inspire you, who can give you hope, and you can feel, I want to be like that, right? And that's what is required. So every community should have their own aspiration. Now, why should every community have it? Because every community is special. You have some special characteristics when you're going up because of family and the way you live. So you want to look for people from your own community who have done well, who can can be role model. For example, there is Nooreen Fazal in Bangalore. She's a friend of ours, and she's started a school called Inventure Academy. I mean, she's fantastic, highly educated. Her mother was a reformer. Her mother was the first woman member of the legislature.
I'm very close to Nafisa Appa. She's a good friend. Nafisa Appa is, where are you, Mehnaaz? How many days since I spoke to you?
And I keep telling Nooreen she must have a bigger persona because she should be able to inspire a lot of Muslim girls to come up. Nisha, you want to add something?
Oh, definitely. No, you mentioned Digital India.
About one idea about transgenders also. I mean, about people who are neither here, there. What's happening about the transgenders and their empowerment?
MDP?
Yeah, Mehnaaz, I think in the last 4 to 5 years, the transgenders have been recognized as a separate class. In many government departments everywhere, you write male, female, and other, right? Because, you come in between. So I think they've been recognized as a special class, which is very good. And special schemes have been started by government to give them jobs. I've seen some of them become government officials. They're becoming collectors. They're becoming something else. They're getting educated. So they're moving away from being a separated class to becoming part of society. The key thing is, in our society, transgenders have been given a particular role historically for various reasons. Now they're all getting educated and they're moving away and participating in society. The more they participate, the better it is. And they're getting into government jobs, they're getting into government service, etc. And that's very good. And in education too, they're coming up. And in many states, I think they got a special reservation to come up. Now, we may quarrel about reservations, but the important thing is you need reservation to give a leg up. India has got reservation for 70 years. It has worked very well in the last 25 years, primarily because the pool has expanded. Earlier, the pool was very small. When the pool expands, more people get in. The foundation for your development is a school education. Now, once you have the good schools, the more transgender are going to school. So I think it's helping. Are we better off? Like Mehnaaz, the question to ask is, are we better off today than we were 5 years ago? We are much better off. Are we going to be better off 5 years from now compared to today? We're going to be much better off because society is progressing. Nisha?
Absolutely. No, and MDP mentioned Digital India, and I think that has been a transformational program for India, or rather set of programs. Because see, previously, all the groups that you mentioned, Mehnaaz, women, transgenders, tribals, they were excluded from mainstream society simply because of access, right? So women were at home, whereas the men went and interacted with society, right? They had the bank account, they went and, they enrolled for government schemes, for example, and got money. But Digital India brought all that access to everyone's fingertips. And if you look at Digital India, it's made of 3 prongs, right? The Jan Dhan banking account, mobile, and Aadhaar. And all 3 of these schemes have taken development to the fingertips of women. So they now all got Jan Dhan accounts, right? What's a Jan Dhan account? Previously, you had to have a business or a house or some kind of property to be able to go to the bank and even get a bank account. But now all these women and everyone else, of course, were able to avail of a zero balance banking account with very basic features, right? So you could check your balance on the mobile. You could there was an overdraft facility of 10,000 rupees, and 10,000 rupees may seem very small to us in the city, but for a woman who has no opportunities in the village, suddenly she's able to avail of 10,000 rupees to be able to put her child in a better school, or to start a small service in the village so that she can start her own shop, or she can start her own service. She can bring other women together to start start making products, right?
The government gives the 10,000 initially, or is it like a quarterly?
No, this is an overdraft facility.
Okay,
so they can draw up to 10,000 rupees of credit. It's a credit facility that they can avail. And because they have a bank account, and crucially because of Aadhaar, right? Aadhaar changed everything. Because before there was the permanent account number, PAN card, there was voter ID, there was ration card, but it was not interoperable. So, and there was a lot of, false identities being created in these systems. But when Aadhaar came in with the biometrics, with residential data, with age data, suddenly all Indians were on one platform. So I read somewhere that as of February 2020, more than 90% of Indians had an Aadhaar number issued to them. So now everyone's on the same platform. The government knows exactly who this person is, right? This Aadhaar identifier is. And now they can confidently start giving these people loans. They can give them bank accounts through Jandan. They can start giving them schemes. You know, Mehnaaz, India spends about 7.5 lakh crores every year on various schemes, right? Food subsidies, fertilizer subsidies, Maganrega, power, water, and all of that. And a lot of, see, this is almost 3% of our GDP. It's very huge. And previously there were so many leakages in the system because there were middlemen, there were inefficiencies. In fact, the public distribution system had about 47% of leakages at one point. But now, because we're able to identify all these people and we're able to give them subsidies and bank accounts and mobile connections, suddenly the system is being cleaned up. And you have, and on Digital India, you can have schemes like the Direct Beneficiary Transfer Program, which has been wonderful. Up to date, 12 lakh crore worth of subsidies has been sent directly to people's bank accounts. They can access it on their mobile. And that has already led to savings of about 1.8 lakh crores in our economy, which is huge, it's about 1% of our economy. And so Digital India has transformed the way India does business, the way India is able to financially include previously disadvantaged groups, and that includes women. Now, more than half of the Jandan account holders are women. They're able to get all these schemes. They're able to avail to, for example, the Prime Minister Ujjwala Yojana, where they can get free gas connections. You know, in 2014, India had only about 12 crore gas connections. And then from 2014, in the last 6 years, we've added 13 crore gas connections, out of which 8 crore have been given free to rural women. Previously, they had all these lung problems because of the smoke that came out of the kerosene and the wood burning stoves. But
Even
now
in
they have these gas
Rotary, in
connections.
fact, when I had met Sir the first time for my Rotary function, I was the assistant governor for Karnataka. And in one of the functions, I took the liberty to go up, and Sir was getting into the car, and I did a namaste, and I said, "Sir, can I have your card?" And that's how I connected with Sir. And that time we were doing solar lamps and solar gas distributions.
Right, right. No, and you know, so many NGOs and impact funds have gone in and done solar, and that is great for our long-term sustainability of the economy, of course. But these gas connections that the government has given on such a scale, right? Imagine 8 crore gas connections being given free. During COVID, these women continued to get free gas connections so that their lives would not be disrupted by COVID. They could still cook smoke free for their families. So these schemes have made a big difference to the economy, Mehnaaz. And I think Digital India has been at the foundation of all of that. So many schemes have come out on top of Digital India. And especially during COVID, we saw 42 crore beneficiaries get minimum income support. This included women Jandan account holders, farmers, rural workers, widows, disabled people, pensioners. So all these people got money directly into their accounts, so they didn't have to worry about where their next meal is going to come
People
from,
in
right? At least
India
they can.
just complaining and complaining that the government is not doing. Little did they know that our Prime Minister has done so much.
So
So
much,
much.
exactly. No, and you know, Menas, let me speak a little bit on what the government has done over the last 6 years, right? Because people don't seem to understand that before 2014, a lot of people in rural India did not see what we see in the cities. They did not see a road. They did not get water in their taps. They did not have a house. They didn't have pakka concrete roof over their house. They were cooking with this smoke-filled house, so everyone had lung problems, right? Suddenly here comes a government that says, I'm going to focus on the rural Indian, the Indian that has not seen any development for the last 70 years. So what did they do? They built about 1.8 or 1.9 crore houses, most of them in the rural area. So people got a pakka, house over their heads. They got piped water coming to their town, if not their house. They got all these gas connections. They got food security, because now food security has been extended to all 36 union territories and states, as opposed to only 25 or 26 before. So suddenly now there's food security. Farmers got insurance. One of the seminal schemes that Digital India has made possible is 9 crore marginal farmers now get minimum income support directly to their bank accounts, right? Their Jandan accounts. And so now they have the 6,000 rupees coming in
This is
every year
basically a
that
part
they're
of
able
our
to.
economic and demographic growth during
Yes.
this time. This is
Oh,
economic and
absolutely,
demographic
absolutely.
growth that's happening, right?
Absolutely. See, because, coming back to the farmers, right? Now, if they don't know where to get their next money from, they can't plan their harvest. They can't plan to maybe employ a couple more workers during the harvest season to be able to cut the crops and everything. But look at COVID. COVID hit, and suddenly everyone was worried about food security. But then the government front ended 2,000 rupees to every marginal farmer. Suddenly they have 2,000 rupees in their bank account, where we had a record rabi crop cycle, and the rabi crop was able to be harvested because farmers knew that there was money in their bank. They could go in and get the necessary farm implements. They could go employ a couple of people to come work in the farm and do the harvest. Similarly, rural workers got this, they got 2,000 rupees in their bank account, and now they know that they can put food on the table while they go out and look for work, even in COVID times. So I think socio-economic growth has seen a huge impetus after Digital India came in, and that has been the backbone of our economic growth for
And tell
sure.
us about the science innovation ecosystem that you wrote as a consulting editor at Your Story.
Something transformational has been happening in science and technology. Now, India has always been an intellectual powerhouse for science and technology. But unfortunately, up to economic liberalization, most of this was only happening in certain universities. And then the public sector, which was, the dominant sector, because until 1991, we were a socialist economy, right? The public sector was not able to employ all of this innovation, was not able to employ all of these scientists to be able to drive economic growth. But suddenly, after economic liberalization, as we can see with the IT industry, for example, people were able to apply their minds to new business models and to new market models. And that is the growth that we're seeing now. So, a lot of the science and technology ecosystem in India is a little nascent compared to other countries. But one of the biggest things we're seeing is that government is putting money behind it, right? For example, the Department of Biotechnology under the Ministry of Science and Technology, they're doing a wonderful job giving out early stage funding. And that's crucial because other people don't want to fund early stage scientific development because it's very risky, right? You don't know if it'll work.
Right.
Even if it works, how do you productize it? How do you manage it? How do you market it? But if the government puts money behind it, suddenly there's all this non dilutive funding. If you go get an investor, you dilute, right? You have to give away 20% of your company. But if the government is giving grants, you don't have to dilute your company. And then you can use that money to do early stage research, to build a prototype, to test the market before you go to investors and say, here I have a very good product. It's a scientific product. It addresses this market gap. And now I've already used government funding to test out and validate the hypothesis. Now I want funding to scale. So that is what we're seeing in this country with deep science innovation. So, and this is
About
going to be
your
very important.
yeah. About your biomonitor research, tell us more since you were the co-founder for it.
So the company was founded by another woman, actually, Dr. Janni Venkatraman, back in 2014. And then when I came in 2017, I joined as an engineering co-founder. So I basically added to the group. And Biomonitor does something very interesting. In 2014, they found this wonderful technology. It's novel technology. It's built around this whole intellectual property pipeline, which is able to prevent the spread of infectious diseases, bacteria, virus, and fungi. And so that's why it's been very interesting, because we found that it's efficient against viruses, the influenza virus, for example, and now we're testing it against COVID-19. So this is, this is the kind of thing that technological development makes possible. And it's very important for India to own technological development, very important to have the intellectual property pipeline, because for far too many years, we've been importing technology designs from other economies like the US, like China, like Korea, etc. So there is a need to push funding, government funding, more importantly, behind scientific development, so that more companies like Biomonitor can rise to the challenge of such a big pandemic like COVID-19. And I must say, Mehnaaz, something that's not reported too often in the media, I've written about it in Financial Express, for example. There were all these companies, small startups, that had innovations and products that were immediately applicable during COVID-19. And so when COVID-19 hit in March, we did not have diagnostic kits. India did not have PPE. We didn't have masks, respiratory aids. But in 3 months, we built up, yeah, we were stuck because global demand was rising. There was all that tension with China and US, and obviously every economy was trying to keep their supply for themselves and for their own citizens. But India, miraculously, in 3 months, we have built up our supply of PPE. We've built up our supply of diagnostic kits, of respiratory aids, ventilators, and everything. We do not rely on other economies right now, and that is because of our innovation weight, right? We've built up such a production supply that now we are near export. We can start exporting the surpluses.
Proud
And
to be
that
an
is the
Indian.
magic of Indian
Proud to be an
innovation.
Indian.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And that's the story we need to be talking about. And that momentum is important to go forward. COVID-19 may decline, but there will always be another catastrophe. Might always be another pandemic. We have to be prepared. And so there is a need for indigenous manufacturing, indigenous technology development. And that is where the funding should go, because, these things take 20 years to develop. But once we are there, see China, for example, 40 years ago, they were where India was. In 1978, in China's and India's GDP was the same, 150 billion. But now China is a 15 trillion economy, and we are hardly touching 3 trillion. And the differentiator there is innovation. They went into semiconductors, they went into manufacturing, and they figured out how to build their own intellectual pipeline. They're giving the US a run for their money now. We should see them and try to inculcate some of those, that confidence to build our own products. Because
Atmanirbhar
that
is
is
the
where
right
our
word. We need to be Atmanirbhar.
Atmanirbhar.
In fact, sir, I've been
Exactly.
thinking that why do we depend on Google? Can't India have its own very powerful search engine? Why do we have to be dependent on Google, sir? So if there
This
is
is
something
a
that we can
evergreen
come up
debate.
with, Bharat, a search engine by the name of Hindustan or Bharat, I mean, it would be wonderful. Why depend on Google, sir? Everyone's doing Google. And now, going forward, sir, what would you say about how are the things going to flow? How do we, prepare ourselves, and what is the time frame? How long? How long will it take us to tide over this pandemic? And what do we expect in the future? A life change.
Mehnaaz, the pandemic, the pandemic has changed the way we live our lives. That means work from home is a reality for a larger number of people. Travel will be less. Technology assimilation will be very high. All of us have become tech natives, and we use technology in day-to-day life. Our purchasing habits have changed. Education has changed. Health has changed. Buying goods have changed. Everything else has changed. So we have become much more digital, and digital has become a part of our day-to-day life for the poorest of the poor and the richest of the rich. Everybody is equal. And like Nisha said, Digital India is a great leveler because it empowers every single individual, irrespective of the place where you are, irrespective of your place in the social totem pole, and irrespective of your gender, irrespective of your background. Because everybody gets access to same kind of information, same kind of ability through technology, right? Now, the economy went down 24% in Q1. April, May, June. July was better than June. August was better than July, and September has been better than August. September, the GST went up by 10%. August went up by 4%. So I think in the July, August, September, we could be negative 4 to 5%. And in October, it has been a very positive month. Since the first month is positive, October, November, December, we could be up growth about 2 to 3%. And January, February, March, we could be up maybe 7 to 8% in growth. So I think for the entire year, we could be down maybe 3 to 5% from where we were 8 to 9%. And today, I'm very happy that industry has become more competitive. In the pandemic, they cut their costs, they reduce the fixed costs, they become more competitive, they're able to sell better, they're more efficient, they're becoming more productive. Many people have lost jobs, though their hiring is coming back. So I think we are on the way up now. Everything has changed, and I think we'll do much, much better. And the government's program with Atmanirbhar, it also means that we don't depend on China. Import from China have come down by 26, 27%. Because our traders are importing a lot of stuff which is made in this country, and they were dominating, and manufacturing was coming down. Now, because of the government's action against China, we are able to make much, much more. And we are seeing this happen. For example, in mobile phones, because the government policy, last year we made 230 million mobile phones. This year we'll make 270 million mobile phones. Yes, the value addition is only 30%. So the government has got this PLI scheme in about 12 different industries. That means the incentivizing manufacturing. Modi made a Make in India about 4 years ago, but there were no incentives behind it. Today, there are incentives behind it. Government is putting the money behind it, and that is helping. Corporate tax has come down from 35% to 25%. For new manufacturing, 15%. So a lot of things have happened. Labor laws have been reformed, and we are seeing defense industry getting reformed. We're seeing education getting reformed with the new policy, and we are seeing, in other industries like getting reformed too. MSMEs have been reformed with the increase in classification. So a lot of things have happened, and all the benefit of that will be seen in the future. So I think India is in the growth path. India will do very well. And as India grows, more and more opportunities will open up for more and more people.
Thank you so much, sir. And your last message, Nisha, to my viewers, to all the women to empower themselves in the challenging field like engineering and technology that you have chosen. Your message to all the women.
Mehnaaz, see, from what I've seen, women are very curious people. Most women I've met are very curious, and they just need the, some sort of confidence or some sort of role model to see, okay, I can use my curiosity in a field like engineering. Because, if you're a curious person, there is nothing better than working in engineering and tech.
Curious? Please let us know. Were your parents in engineering or technology?
Both my parents come from science and engineering background, so obviously definitely that helped. But sitting in school, I always found my physics classes so interesting, math classes, chemistry classes, biology classes. In fact, that's the reason I picked chemical engineering when I went into college, because I liked all the 4 science subjects equally, and I didn't want to give any of it up. So I decided chemical engineering works at the intersection of all of it. And I think that's what's important, in school, for girls and boys, of course, to understand where your interests lie, which parts of the world you're most curious about, and then go into that. And today, engineering and tech is a completely different field. See, before, even when I was choosing engineering, there were naysayers. There were a couple of people who said, why do you want to do engineering? Because in their mind, there is that old thing where engineering means you're working in an oil field, or you're working in this hot and stuffy machine room. But that's no longer the case. Everything's done through a computer. I do computational physics, and it's all in the computer. So I've hardly worked in a laboratory or never in an oil field or anything like that, right? So now with software coming in, everything's available on the computer to do. And I think that has been a big leveler for women. You see women enrolling more and more in the tech industry. They're joining companies like Infosys and Wipro and TCS, because the manual work component has come down. They can do a lot of it through the computer. And so it's just easier for women to join the engineering and technological workforce.
You are a role model for all the women who would like to aspire, to the young girls too watching the show. You are a role model that if this is one territory of technology and research and engineering, that it's somewhere where you can get where Nisha is right now. So thank you, Nisha.
Absolutely.
Last question to sir is, sir, what next are you doing? Because you're always evolving into something or the other. So what next? I cannot hear you. Sorry, I cannot hear.
He's on mute.
Yeah.
You're on mute.
Sorry, I want to work more in higher education research and in the startup space, because today India has got about 50,000 startups who created about $170 billion of value, employing 800,000 people with 40 unicorns. I work in that area, and I want to see by 2025, India having more than 100,000 startups, creating $500 billion of value, employing 3.25 million people with 100 unicorns. So next 4 years, what I want to do is in technology, in startups, in innovation, create a big base and, help fund them, make them grow into unicorns and change this country. Because I believe that young people require entrepreneurship and great hope. And the hope comes through technology, because technology is the great leveler. Behind technology, your background, your ethnicity, your gender just doesn't matter. What matters is the talent, because you're all behind the cloak of technology. And that's why I'm working in this area of innovation, which is attracting more and more young people. And a country today which is highly innovative will succeed. China is becoming extremely innovative. The US has always been innovative. And these are the two great countries which have done extremely well in the last 25 years. Now, India's time has come. This decade will be the decade of Indian women, and this decade will be the decade of India. And both are coming together. So I'm very happy. I want to be a part of it and give,
if there is any space, small little iota where I can serve in this huge work that you're doing and this great initiative, please do let me know. I'm in the same
Sure,
like
Mehnaaz.
you are. And
No,
on that note, I would like to humbly thank you with all my heart. Thank you so much, sir. It's been really an honor. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. धन्यवाद आप लोग आए. Thank you, Nisha, and hope to see you all
Thanks,
in
Mehnaaz.
person very soon. Be very safe. Thank you again for Womenistan. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.